A few symptoms here and there, but I'm very much feeling a lot more normal now than I did at this time last week. So let's chill and let's talk about what's going on here. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay, back to the Pandemi-Rants one more time as we test things out and make sure I can even still do this stuff as we get back into the swing of things here. This weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving, it's wee hours of the morning, Saturday, November 19th, 2022. The plans I have for this weekend are 2 streams. I want to do 2 streams this weekend. This is going to close the book on all the COVID discussions that we've been having with the Pandemi-Rants and stuff, and kind of close the book on the Pandemi-Rants because we've entered an era of stealth transmission, and quite frankly, I think what happened to me is going to be the story that you're going to hear about anybody else who gets infected as we head into the holidays, the holiday season, and everything else. We lifted all the mitigations, and hey, what do you know? People are getting sick now that we've lifted the mitigations, which is just hard evidence that those mitigations worked, and not just for COVID, but for other stuff as well. We're going to take a look at a couple of things here and there and just keep it all chill and stuff. I'm still not 100%, but the good news is one bar, you can see the one bar next to the C, finally tested negative. Still have a few residual symptoms like when you get over like bronchitis or something, but one bar. And the good news is that I've been off the Paxlovid for about 5 days now, finished it up at the beginning of the week. So we're not looking at any kind of rebound infection of any kind. That's good. In this day and age where it seemed like every bigwig in Washington who is taking Paxlovid rebounded, it's great to know that there's normal people out. And you can jump on Twitter and you can find a whole bunch of people like, I had symptoms rebound after I took Paxlovid, da da da. But there's a little something the internet does that you need to be aware of when you're dealing with this internet stuff. And that is quite simply, the internet aggregates together vocal minorities. So you have to look at things in perspective. The number of people in this world, the number of patients taking Paxlovid. But if you want to find every single person who had a rebound or something, you can find them easily on the internet because the internet is very easily searchable. You can very easily aggregate together a list of everybody who had things turn for the worse with COVID and completely miss all the people who didn't have that happen. So, and the same thing is true with some of the screaming and hollering, even on my side of this debate, pushing for masking and more science and more testing, that there are some people who have some emotional problems that are attaching themselves to this whole discussion. And one of the worst things you'll find that people do is that bad people attach themselves to good movements, because that's what exists in this world. Crap. And a lot of stuff that people do is complete crap and total BS and total nonsense as well. And you learn that the hard way. And that's one of the reasons why you don't really want to put your hopes in people too much, because people can be stupid, people can screw things up, and people can be malicious. So anyways, let's talk here. First order of business. The Christmas tree is up. And it's not even Thanksgiving yet. That is partly to spite some of the folks I work with who are complaining, my wife made me put up the Christmas tree and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. You'll notice there's no ornaments, though. That's because the Christmas tree here at the Geek House serves 2 purposes. Obviously, it's going to be a Christmas tree during the Christmas season. But during the winter, one of the criticisms of Christmas is that the Festival of Lights and Baby Jesus and stuff like that, the whole Christmas thing is allegedly, just a way to brighten up what's otherwise the darkest time of the year. And I leaned into the meme. So the way it works here is the Christmas tree will have ornaments during Christmas, and in the entire rest of the winter, until it warms up, it'll be, this is a fiber optic tree, it'll just be doing its thing with no ornaments until spring arrives. So the lava lamp has been removed from the setup, and I don't see myself using it anytime soon, because unfortunately, those of you who know anything about Connecticut and the Northeast and our diesel shortage and what it's doing to energy prices, Eversource has apparently gotten a green light from our so-called regulators to jack the cost of electricity for the first 6 months of 2023. So I'm going to be super tenacious in trying to cut that a bit and to see, what exact. I think my major appliances contribute to that the most. I might want to eat more cold food and stuff and cook less, or maybe cook on the gas a little more than the electricity, because we are getting ripped off big time on the cost of electricity beginning in January. So we'll have to see how horrible that gets. It's like, and the thing is, I agree with our governor, Ned Lamont, who got reelected, thank goodness. I agree with our governor that he's already challenging the energy companies because their profits are up. Why don't we just link that up? He's challenging the energy companies already because their profits are up. But let me just load up and link up. I don't really need the other stuff just yet, but let me link up the St. Louis Federal Reserve. Corporate profits after tax. This is something I've had since the Great Recession in the Great Recession economics charts. Corporate profits after tax. Let me link up to browser mode, and I only have one browser that I can really link to besides Live Control Room. Put it on Chrome. Here is my criticism of the so-called inflation that people talk about. Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, which is totally understandable. People have been given money for stimulus and they've gotten wage increases. And on the flip side, you also have COVID out there, which we're talking about tonight. You also have COVID disrupting supply chains. So it easily creates a situation where too much money chases too few goods. That's part of it. The other part of that, and the Associated Press ran something that explicitly stated this, because companies are so brazen that they will come out and admit this, that they're raising prices higher than their costs and enjoying record profits. Here's corporate profits after tax. This is one of the things I was introduced to it via the Occupy Wall Street movement, who is absolutely furious about the state of everything after the recession. You'd see the Great Recession, that big dip there around 2010 or so. But I don't want to just get the pointer involved in all of this. But this is corporate profits after tax, proof that America knows how to make money. Here's the Great Recession. Bam, 2008 financial crisis. And everything sore everywhere from that. Getting over this thing. Oh, that hurt. Oh, yeah, sore. Chest, stomach, all the muscles that I cough with are sore from all this crap. Ow. Yeah, this is going to take a while to 100% get over, especially since I tried to get physical again. The good news is that I've succeeded in getting my heart rate back to normal. So by going back to work, taking it easy and easing back into it. What am I at right now? I'm sitting here at attention talking, and I'm not going to crack 100, right? Come on, load up. 75 beats a minute. That's way better. Before I went back to work, I could sit up and hit 100 beats a minute, and everything else was tachycardia territory. So that's a huge improvement. All right, corporate profits after tax. Everything came roaring back very quickly after the 2008 financial crisis, even as companies were crying and complaining about how the recession allegedly had long-term effects on, oh, it's so terrible, the recovery's been so slow. I look at the hard numbers. There was a dip around the time of the crisis, and everything came roaring back. Then it gradually increased, and then we had a self-inflicted recession during the pandemic lockdowns in 2020, but look what happened afterwards. Corporate profits after tax have risen higher and faster than ever before in the past 50-plus years of history. That's not inflation. That's profiteering. This is the problem with high costs of everything right now. This is the problem with the cost of oil, the cost of gas, and the cost of diesel. Oh, we're in a war with Russia, and there's economic sanctions and everything. It's Cold War with Russia, I would say. It's probably like a new Cold War at this point. But that was early 2022. Look at 2020. That was like early 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. This trend has been going on since getting out of the pandemic, or since getting out of the lockdowns, I should say. This trend has been going on the entire decade so far, since our self-inflicted recession during the lockdowns. We have a problem with corporate greed. We have a problem with organizations at the top running away with everybody's money. And let me tell you something, even as a Democrat from a blue state like Connecticut, let me tell you this. If an individual takes advantage of a crisis to take people's money, the attorney general goes after them and probably sues them for price gouging. We have laws against price gouging for individuals. But when organizations do it, what happens? We make excuses. We say it's inflation. We say it's something else. We make a bazillion excuses while the hard numbers tell the real story that organizations are running away with everybody's money. Where's the accountability when it's a collective entity fleecing somebody instead of an individual? Where is the accountability for this? So don't come talking to me about inflation. There is some inflation in the mix, but if it really were inflation, we would see corporate profits around here somewhere. It would have increased at the same rate that it was increasing before 2020. But what we see is plenty of money being made off the backs of the pandemic and all the suffering that happened during the lockdowns, the Delta wave, the Omicron wave, everything. So, yeah, anyways, right, so that's the situation with that. Don't go trying to tell me about inflation or anything. And same thing, too, with the energy companies. Kudos to the governor for calling out this malfeasance for what it is. It is absolutely profiteering off of a crisis. And quite frankly, the special session of our legislature that's being called is something that I fully support. Let's mention the title before we get into talking about this. And there's Dan. Sounds like the Midwest. Oh, it's happening everywhere. Let's talk about a little something here. I'm glad there's no drop frames, though. Just checking something on my phone here with some stuff that we're going to be talking about. So, the title, Vanks Vovid. The title, Vanks Vovid. That is a reference to the Saturday Night Live skit that aired when I was getting my ass kicked by COVID-19. About, COVID's a vacation. Da, da, da. It's a satire trying to make getting COVID look like a drug commercial. Like it's something I can chuckle at nowadays, but it's probably some of the most tasteless satire that I've ever seen from SNL. It's just, ugh. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to age very well because, look, scientists are looking at the after effects of COVID, especially multiple infections. There's some early signs that too many COVID infections can have a similar effect as HIV and dampen your immune system. I mean, let's just think about it here because it makes perfect sense. I mean, we're talking about a virus where before all of the COVID minimizers and conservatives and other people who've kicked against the bricks with literally everything we've done to try and fight this thing, before all of that happened, there were conspiracy theories getting cooked up about how this virus was a Chinese bioweapon that leaked from a lab in Wuhan and that we needed to investigate and hold people accountable or whatever. So we went from conspiracy theory about this virus to suddenly wanting to pretend it was over. Shows how nuts people are. No, it's not over. And masks, anybody? Washington, even as John Kerry gets infected with this crap, Washington seems to have forgotten what these things are. And press in the middle. Doesn't work very well with the glasses. These are KF94s. This is the Chinese knockoff version, so I only use this for like trips to the store and stuff. But I was wondering what it looked like with these things. Yeah, very, very ninja-esque with this kind of stuff, or like Bane from Batman or something. But yeah, KF94s, the Korean answer to N95s. So I have these Chinese ones. They're not as thick and stuff, but I have real Korean ones that I'm using at work now. So definitely a nice upgrade for masking and stuff like that. But that's the other major criticism that I have. All right, taking the glasses off and everything because the loop thingy is getting stuck in the glasses. All right, down to the floor it goes. Yeah, it's over. It's the other major criticism that I have right now. The other major criticism I have is suddenly, Washington has total maskophobia. Like, they don't want to talk about Mask Ninja J. That's why I wear blackout edition masks. I want to look like a ninja. I want to look like a ninja or a Batman villain. I don't want to look like someone's doctor or something like that. Where'd that thing land? We don't want to leave that thing on the floor. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. KF94 is the Korean answer to N95s. KF94s, South Korea's answer to N95s. So I got these ones that are from a Chinese manufacturer for small trips because they're kind of flimsy and they feel more like surgical masks. But I have real Korean ones that are thicker and stiffer. And what I've been doing, is I've been pairing them up with the cloth masks that I've been wearing all along that I've been running into the ground. So that way, one of the problems with loop masks is they don't really give you as good of a seal. That's why you constantly see nurses and stuff like twisting the ties. They like do this with them to try and get them to stick better. But N95s, if you get the True Blue N95s, they go around the back of your head and that holds it to you a lot harder. Well, so do my cloth masks. I always like those. They just flip them down and flip them back up and never have to take them off and put them on something. So what I've been doing is KF94 underneath the cloth mask. So it's technically double masking, but it takes the Korea KF94 and, oh, here we go. We have a lag spike. Okay, that's still a thing. One lag, so we got 37 drop frames. So maybe I should have restarted the equipment before I did this. But finally, one lag spike after months of this crap. I could always also see if the ISPs go into maintenance. That also used to happen. Probably should have did an internet reset before I went live. But enjoy the frame drops. Maybe things are going to fall apart right in time for the holiday. I'll tell you though, for tomorrow's tech stream, I will definitely do an internet reset before all this. We can get rid of all these stupid little push notifications. But yeah, I have the Hanes cloth ones. They are nice, keep me from freezing. Yeah, it also helps with things being super cold right now. The reason why I have the tree up is because we've hit overnight lows in the 20s. It feels like the middle of winter and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So bust out the tree in FU winter mode. No ornaments. We'll put the ornaments on when it's after Thanksgiving. And we have our long weekend coming up. We'll put the ornaments on it then. Stuff along those lines. We'll put the ornaments on it. We'll put the ornaments on it then. So, So yeah, it's been cold, and the new mask setup does help with staying warm and stuff. It'll be good with all this other crap that's going around. So, where were we on all this? Okay, Vanks Vovid. That's a reference to the Saturday Night Live skit, and it's kind of tasteless satire. It's probably not going to age very well. And the number one criticism I have of our COVID response right now is maskophobia. Washington and federal politicians, even after the election, still don't want to acknowledge that masks exist. I don't understand it. The election's over. The Democrats staved off the red wave. The Democrats staved off the red wave. The Republicans took the House. So we have a situation not unlike 2005 or something, when the Senate leaned a little leftward and the House of Representatives leaned a little rightward. But we're talking barely a majority, and the Republican Party is far from unified at this point. You have there's three Americas right now: Blue America, Red America, and Trump America, because of Donald Trump's effect on the American right wing. And I was wondering when Red America would make a comeback, and I think the results of the midterms just happens to show Red America is overdue to make some kind of return and not be so off the deep end compared to Trump America. Even though, if you look at when former President Trump decided to declare his candidacy, he said he was running for president again about 666 days after his last day in office. People are jumping on that and wondering if it was deliberate. Hey, lag spike. Totally going red. Okay, I will be contacting the ISP. They didn't fix it. We've replaced everything. And now I guess they got to check out. It's 1:39 in the morning. Yeah, we got to check out what's going on with this. It's like, this can't be this unreliable. We're now up to hundreds of frames dropped already. So, pathetic. Well, I'm already down to the cheapest broadband that I can get. So, and I don't think I'm going to spend a penny more until these people fix their stuff. That's why I have that. That's why I have the output thing going. So streaming, baby. We got to see if someone's backfeeding interference into the circuit because there's people on the street that have screwy setups and don't really know what they're doing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Why are we so afraid of masks? The election is over. It's another 2 years until the next one. We have multiple viruses going around that are spread airborne. There's no rule that you could only use these for COVID. We have flu going around. We have RSV going around. There could be dust even. You could have dust and smoke from like a wood stove or something. Maybe you have a smoke allergy or something like that, and you have someone who wants to run the wood stove, so you put one of these on, you don't breathe in as much of the smoke particles or something. Like there's just so many things going on. There's so many things you could wear a mask for. But the biggest mistake we made was by letting this get political. We were dumb enough to make a political issue out of this. So now we're going to have Washington, the little Washington slap fights fighting over funding, which will put the United States in very serious trouble if we don't fix this. Because we're going to have the EU and other parts of the world, maybe even China, pushing ahead of us on the technology to fight COVID. See, here's the thing. What a lot of these isolationist Trump America people don't want to understand is that the world is interconnected and competition is always going on no matter what. The reason why we need to develop electric cars in this country and an electric car industry and source the lithium and everything from around the world is so China doesn't get to it before us and sell. Do we really want Chinese car companies to be the #1 seller of electric cars in the United States if they can break into our market somehow, if they're the furthest ahead on electric cars? And then there's the same thing with COVID treatments. China laughably did horribly with intramuscular injection vaccines like what we have for COVID right now. But they're working on a nasal vaccine, which many people acknowledge is probably the next step in COVID vaccines. So that way the stuff that fights the virus can be in your nasal passages. The antibodies can hang in that general area and be closer to where the darn thing's going to come into your body and possibly help cut transmission. It's a race right now among manufacturers in all around the world to get a nasal vaccine for COVID as the next major step in this, because we thought that the muscle injection ones would cut transmission. Maybe in the original variants they did, but the thing's been evolving since then. So the thing is, though, if we withhold funding, if we don't have the R&D going on in the United States, if we don't have this crap, being researched, China gets ahead of us. What are we going to do when China gets this before we do and they try and they're selling us the next generation of COVID vaccines? That's not a way to be an American patriot. That's sabotaging the country. National pride hinges on it. While we're arguing about masking and stuff like that, and we got idiots that won't get vaccinated. While we're arguing about all of this, China's not going to be held back by silly little rhetoric, by dumb rhetoric like that. They're pushing ahead on this. They also do zero COVID, which, it might hurt their economy. You know what also hurts the economy? A disabled workforce from long COVID. I mean, I've heard the stories from guys like Mike talking about how he lost his sense of taste for a year and then it came back scrambled. I also found out another case of someone's sense of taste getting scrambled here. I mean, I never had oxygen problems, never lost taste or smell or anything. The part of the COVID thing I'm most concerned about is the cardiovascular side of it. COVID is a cardiovascular wild card. You never know what's going to happen. I'm probably going to end up seeing a cardiologist because of this garbage, because you don't know. You could have blood clots, microclots, some symptoms that linger for months afterwards, but it's just a mess now. And so that's why I want us to have one last discussion on all of this, and we can go over some of the things here. But first, take this corporate profits thing, turn that off. Let me actually look at this CNBC article. Can I flip dark mode for this so it doesn't, light me up so much? That looks a little better. CNBC, I think this is going around Twitter, but we're just going to skim it here. Children's hospitals are calling on President Biden to declare a national emergency because of the RSV surge. So RSV affects kids and the elderly more than it affects adults. It's more like a cold for people in the middle, but people very old, people very young, people very vulnerable get hit harder by it. The Children's Hospital Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, I almost said Petri dishes, told the Biden administration that unprecedented levels of RSV combined with increasing flu circulation are pushing some hospitals to the breaking point. And I know that's a thing here in New England, too. Rhode Island, Hasbro Children's Hospital, filled up, ran out of beds. They were like, hey, this is too much. Stuff like that. So it's a thing over here in southern New England as well. They asked the federal government to declare an emergency to provide hospitals with added flexibility to meet the surge. Infants 6 months and younger are getting hospitalized with RSV at 7 times the rate observed before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2018, according to CDC data. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to address the latest round of nonsense going around the internet. And that's this whole immunity debt thing. Sometimes you run into things that make sense logically, but they don't pan out in the real world. That's why you can't get ahead of the data. And immunity debt is one of those. Well, we've got an immunity debt because we weren't getting sick earlier, so now we're going to get sick now. That doesn't mean there's any kind of debt or anything. It doesn't mean your immune system got weaker. It just responds to different things. So let me just tell you this. There's enough bacteria in the world, in the food that you eat, on the surfaces that you touch, that your immune system is constantly having to fight stuff. It's not a... This thing is leaking badly. It's going to be tough to... I'm going to have to get a new one of these because it fell over and I scrubbed it and cleaned it a little too much and now everything's out of joint. So, it's going to be tough drinking out of this thing until I replace it. It had a good run, about 2 years or so with this thing. I just got to see what those things are going for, because these things are made out of metal and they're insulated. So this thing fell over and I think I damaged it, so now it's not going to work very well. So, actually I might have one where I busted the metal part, but the cap's still good. I might just swap them. Mix and match parts on Contigo things. Either way. So here's the thing. Immunity debt is complete nonsense. You are constantly being exposed. If you ever watch Mythbusters, for example, with the 10-second rule, like, or double dipping chips in salsa and stuff, there's more bacteria automatically in the salsa than will be added from someone's spit if they double dip a chip. This is the sort of thing that you don't have to do very much digging to find out, that a lot of what's going around about immunity debt is just hysteria on the internet. And then let's talk about these kids, these babies that are getting hospitalized with RSV. These are babies that were born this year. 6 months and younger are getting hospitalized with RSV at 7 times the rate observed before the pandemic. That's not immunity debt. These are babies that were born this year. These are babies whose entire lives have been post-mitigation. It's not a situation where, oh, they didn't get sick. No. And for kids who are a couple of years old, maybe the pandemic constitutes most of their life at this point, the Gen Alphas. This isn't an immunity debt thing. They're just getting sick now instead of earlier. And you have more kids getting sick all at once because we pulled mitigations and all kinds of other stuff. Previously, you might have had like a kid gets sick here, a kid gets sick there, etc. But you have mitigations that stop all of that. And now all you did was alter the timetable of when these kids get these infections. You know, when they bring home the bug from school or daycare or whatever. You just altered the timeline and compressed it together so there's more cases up front with some of the older kids. And you're thinking, oh, it's immunity debt. This is going to be used to fuel disinformation and misinformation. And it's going to make people skeptical of vaccines and all kinds of other crap. The same crap that is already the reason why the United States has failed so miserably versus COVID versus other developed countries. It's a giant case of lowest common denominator, who's the weakest link. And the weakest link are the stupids. The people that have fought tooth and nail on the side of the virus, betraying the rest of us while we tried to fight this thing. They minimized it. They turned into a matter of personal choice. They hated vaccines. They hated this. They hated boosters. They suckered people into not protecting themselves. Then we wonder why people are getting their asses kicked when they get infected with COVID or something. But in the case of this RSV thing, Yeah, Dan say, yeah, flu, colds, and COVID. The thing with this RSV, also, let me also mention here in New England, it's gotten cold like multiple times. The temperature has substantially dropped multiple times in the last couple of months. It keeps getting cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot. Any other year, people would be like, well, the weather's changing so much. No wonder people are getting sick. But now we're coming up with these old wives' tales or whatever about all of this. Why is everybody getting sick? So New England has a weather problem, and then you have these other things that are in play here. So immunity debt, total nonsense. If immunity debt was real, your dentist would be telling you to stop brushing your teeth so that way you could develop immunity to gingivitis or something. No. This is where you get morons out there who are like, I want to get infected on purpose. That way I build up immunity. And we get stupid shit like measles parties. Oh, pardon my frickin' French. What's DJ saying? Parents are almost being forced to send their sick kids to school to avoid truancy court, even with doctor notes. Yeah, well, that's why you mask your kids, you know. Got multiple things going around, not just COVID. See, and this is the thing with Dr. Walensky and her maskophobia, even though she had mild COVID and was out for like 3 weeks, when the average person only gets 5 days isolation. You know, the regular Joe here in America only gets 5 days isolation. Walensky gets it. She's out for 3 weeks with mild symptoms. She did have Paxlovid rebound, though, so that's part of the problem. And so I think also it was a government thing, whatnot. You have to test regularly, and you have to be negative because the standards with the White House and our 80-year-old president are a lot stricter than they are for the average layman. So there's that to contend with as well. But she's like, look, you have COVID, you have flu, you have RSV going around. These things could actually come in handy now. Where did we get this stupid idea that these things are only for COVID? That we only needed these things for COVID? They're like, oh, no, forget flu. Even though Asia has had masking as part of their culture during flu season for a very long time, with crappier masks than this. The pandemic forced manufacture of higher quality masks, N95s, KN95s, KF94s. You know, there's so many things you can get. I'm buying KF94s, and I found out this week I could wear them for up to a week at a time. I don't have to throw them out every single day. I thought I was treating them like surgical masks. So technically, I probably have I could buy another pack of those Pure Life, whatever. What are they called? I have one around. Where is it? No, they're called Pure Mate masks. I had one sitting here. Ah, here it is. Get the blister pack right here. Yeah, these things. Pure Mate KF94s. Pure Mate KF94s. I'm mostly familiar with these things because of all the Korean streamers that wear them. So they're also designed as an N95 Korea's answer to N95s, but to be worn by civilians for long periods of time. So they're a lot more comfortable than some of them. And then of course you don't have to worry about like the knockoffs as much with like China and stuff with the KN95s also the regulations are a bit different. Korea is a little stricter with constant compliance versus China. And then the United States, of course, has N95s if you want to pay for them. But what I'm doing is I'm taking one of these, and I'm putting it under the cloth masks that I've been running into the ground. So I have something similar to an N95 with cloth over the top of it, which is multiple layers. That was already filtering something. And I have stuff going on the back of my head, so I have the same way of securing the mask as an N95 that goes around the back of your head. So I don't have the issues with ear loops. Matter of fact, the cloth masks are so tight, if my ear starts hurting, I can actually unhook the ear loop and nothing happens. The mask stays put because the cloth mask is holding it in place. You see them if you look at my pandemic mask video from the earlier part of the Pandemi-Rants. It's in the playlist for it and stuff. But you got all this crap going on. Now, here's the thing with Walensky, right? So we had a mask mandate for earlier variants of COVID that were less transmissible, the ones that kicked your ass more because they hit harder in the lungs. A lot of the long COVID stories I'm hearing, including from Mike, by the way, who said stuff in the comments, a lot of the long COVID stories I'm hearing are from people who got infected with the earlier variants that hit harder before Omicron, which is more of an upper respiratory thing. Thank goodness all these more transmissible variants didn't hit as hard, but still, The so-called mild variants I probably had the BQs when I got hit with this thing. Gave me the worst fever of my life. I wound up in the hospital because I was over 103 degrees and I was running out of pills I could take before I started risking liver damage from too much Tylenol. I was worried how much higher it would go when the pills wore off. Fortunately, the hospital people told me mix and match, so I got some aspirin involved that I can use for this. Also some more acute pain relief if I want to lay off the Tylenol, because I traditionally use slow-release arthritis Tylenols type thingies, or acetaminophen, that last 8 hours for work to blunt any back pain or other stuff that I could have there. But Dr. Walensky, like, oh, there's respiratory viruses going around. Wash your hands. Yeah, it's good to wash your hands, but mask, 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 mask. Enough with the maskophobia, Washington. We have multiple respiratory bugs going around. These things are not expensive anymore. There's no shortage like there was of the PPE shortage in 2020. People can get them and they can protect themselves. Dr. Jha mentioned masks at that COVID equity summit they just had this week at the White House. Come on, Walensky. Stop pretending the election's over. No more worrying about the Democrats might not get votes because of masking. Stop pretending these things don't exist. Older, less transmissible COVID variants got us hit with mask mandates and people getting disciplinary action at their jobs for not wearing their mask. Suddenly, we have more transmissible COVID going around, RSV, flu, and who knows what else. And we're pretending these don't exist. You have Joe Biden, of all people, going all Mr. Magoo. The pandemic is over, but we still have a COVID problem. He walked back what he said, but people love remembering things out of context. Look, I don't take medical advice from politicians, least of all a doddering old president who in his days in the legislature was known for being a gaffe machine. Joe Biden was not a very interesting candidate for me any other year. But after 4 years of Donald Trump, a boring-ass career politician, seemed like a welcome break from the never-ending drama that the Trump years represented. And how about those things where Trump said, like, oh, yeah, we have a PPE shortage. Maybe we can wash N95. Or how about the bleach thing or the other crap? Stuff that prompted a very quick response from poison control centers and stuff. Like, please don't do this. Yeah. To not even talk about the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin garbage and still getting people trying to troll with that stuff. I got to get rid of this thing. It's had its day. It's dripping all over the place. Anyways, let's get back to this RSV thing. Children's Hospital Association, American Academy of Pediatrics want a national emergency declared. Increasing flu circulation, pushing hospitals to the breaking point. So you have babies getting RSV, whose entire life, what's this? What's this from DJ? When I had a coughing fit at work from allergies in 2017, I was told to buy a mask on break. Yeah, I mean, it's not, if this thing ruins your day, you're a pansy ass. It's that simple. Little piece of cloth is the worst thing in the world to you, as opposed to getting sick and all the costs of downtime or having to work sick. Do you really want to be working with a fever or coughing your lungs up or whatever's going around? I'm not even talking about COVID. I'm talking about literally anything. This stuff is very affordable and we've learned how to wear them, and it's right there. It's right there. And there are other parts of the world that are fighting this stuff more than we are. So there will be critical mass with the number of KF94s and KN95s from Korea and China, respectively. That'll keep the prices from going too high. You want to get N95s, the American ones? Go right ahead. They'll probably cost more. I'll stick with the ones from Korea, because I'm most familiar with them, and I don't want the stupid little bubble thingy over my nose and mouth. That's more of a construction thing. And I certainly don't want to look like Mr. Duckman with the duck bill ones. So, yeah, these aren't too bad. I'll go with that. But let's see here. RSV. So these are children, these are babies that are getting hospitalized their entire life. If they're 6 months or younger, 11 minus 6, their entire life has been after we yoinked all the mitigations. So it's not an immunity debt thing, even though immunity debt's not a thing. More than 3/4 of pediatric hospital beds are occupied in the U.S., etc. 80% of beds are full. Emergency declaration will provide hospitals flexibility to free up bed capacity and staffing to make sure children get the care they need, etc. What do we have here? The surge in kids falling ill with respiratory virus comes amid staffing shortages. Many healthcare workers have switched careers or retired due to pandemic-era burnout. Well, yeah, you had stupids out there making them work a lot of extra hours because they were sucking horse paste or whatever. Like, stupidity has ruined an industry, as if healthcare wasn't already a disaster in this country. Now you have a bunch of people. Look, you know, when I go see the doctor, or if those times I've wound up in the hospital, whether because of bradycardia or whatever, stuff I was worried about, you know, with my heart or with COVID. Now, I was very nice to the nurses because I know they've put up with a lot of crap. Anytime I run into a nurse, you know, I'm friendly, try to crack some jokes, make them laugh, make them feel better, because I know they've put up with a lot of crap in the last 2 years and a lot of preventable crap. Now, I'm sure hopefully they've made a nice chunk of money from overtime getting reimbursed properly, as they've put themselves at risk because of all the stupids out there who wouldn't wear a mask, wouldn't get vaccinated, the whole 9 yards. But they deserve better. People who work in healthcare deserve better than what they've been dealing with for the last 2 years, almost 3 years now. They deserve a lot better. 2.5 years. We'll just meet in the middle on that one. It's dry in here. 40% humidity. That's lower than the air conditioner. Yeah, it's lip balm season. I'm going to have to find where the lip balm went. Is it still over there somewhere? Where's the Burt's Beesy stuff? No, I'll find it later. Oh, what's that? Is this it? No, that's a battery. We'll worry about it later. Yep, cold and dry. I told you it was like middle of January, and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. Sucks. Hospitals are forced to hold patients in emergency departments because no inpatient beds available, which can result in long waits, diminished care, and bad results for patients. So ASAP described the situation as a public health emergency. Let's see here. And they're like, yeah, go get all your shots, of course. And then they talk about what RSV is, what it's doing to the hospital. Oh, almost all children hospitalized with the flu at Children's Healthcare Atlanta have not received their annual vaccination. Part of the problem is the virus came early this year, so people didn't have time. Well, flu shots become available in September. We usually say get your flu vaccine by Halloween. Well, by Halloween, we were having lots and lots of flu here in Georgia. So, I'm sure vaccine hesitancy is now a lot more mainstream, and people are getting suckered into it a lot more than before. This doesn't look too bad in dark mode, though. Why don't I just leave the whole tab thing in dark mode and switch back over here? Oh, we had another lag spike. Cool. Well, fortunately, I'm going to be displaying a lot of static images, but I will do an internet reset before we do any more of this. So, it's going to suck, though, because we got some technicians out there. I don't want another trouble tech out here. They're going to have to check and see if some of the other people on the street are backfeeding interference from their screwy internet and wiring setups. That's what the last trouble tech told me earlier. All right, so let me just transition over here, go over to browser mode. So here is the flu season map. I've added this to my COVID trackers just because I've been tracking all this public health stuff for a while. But here's the flu season map. Notice anything? Of course, it was more notable earlier when there was more purple on the map. The South has a flu problem. Of course, Connecticut has a flu problem as well. It's Connecticut, New York. Of course, New York has a lot of international travel and stuff, and it's 8 million people in New York City. So, what's CBSA do? Oh, that's where everything's happening, I think. Is this some kind of reporting thing? Oh, is that like hospitals or something? Either way. So, this is the flu map. They had to add purple and more very high colors because of things going crazy in the South. So this is like the ultimate evidence that immunity debt is not a thing. Because if, your immune system is more robust because you got infected with more stuff, The South got hit harder with the Delta variant. The South also had red state policies that are now national policies for COVID containment, that it's personal choice, no mask mandates, no vaccination pushes or anything, And then in Florida, there was monoclonal antibodies draining money from Washington because they were taking federal dollars and pushing $2,000 monoclonal treatments instead of $40 shots. Good job, Ron DeSantis, you dumbass. But anyways, yeah, sorry, I have a bit of a thing against Ron DeSantis because my cousin died under his nonsense during the Delta wave in Florida last year. So, but when the Delta variant was first starting to go around, I was joking on Facebook to my friends about it's the COVID Confederacy, because literally the old Confederate States of America were lighting up first with the biggest problems with COVID. It's like, I like COVID's recreating the old South. Woo! Now look what we have here. Not as notable as before, but the blood color is close to purple. There used to be a lot more purple that was basically encompassing the Deep South. It's warmer there. Flu? Tons of flu over here when it's warmer than it is here in New England? So this is probably the ultimate evidence right here that immunity debt's not a thing. Because the South should be doing amazing. They got hit harder with COVID. Less people got vaccinated. There's more so-called natural immunity. There's probably more people with multiple infections and all kinds of other crap who are probably... And yet they got pounded with the flu when they have warmer weather still than most of the Northeast or the upper Midwest or whatever. They got pounded with the flu. What more evidence do we need that it's complete not? And look at Alaska. Not a lot of flu in Alaska. Way up there where it's colder. Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, Minnesota, Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's the warmer part of the country that has more flu. Seriously. What more needs to be said? All right. So yeah, we have all this stuff going around. We have all this crap going around. Why is there the maskophobia? Thanks, Vovid. So horrible. All right, let's swing things back towards a more general discussion about COVID, which is what the title would suggest if you're familiar with the SNL skit. So I'm pretty much back to normal. I tested negative. Those of you who weren't around at the beginning of the stream, 1 bar. I got to get some more tests now. 1 bar, I finally tested negative, so I got some residual symptoms like if you get over a bad cold or something. I got some, like, occasionally I'll cough or I'll sniffle a little, but it's like when you get over a bad cold and stuff like that. It's nothing crazy. I might sound a little congested still, because I kind of am still congested a little still, but we're past the stage now where coughing up dead virus and the getting over bronchitis part of this will trip antigen tests. So we got to buy some more. My health insurance will actually reimburse up to 8 tests per month. So I might buy some more after I buy the 5 Clina tests, the box of 5 Clina tests that I'm getting here. So net result of everything was, it was, incredibly mild. The biggest issue I'm worried about with my infection is the cardiovascular complications afterwards. Probably going to end up seeing a cardiologist because of this, because there have been situations where middle-aged people have gotten nasty surprises and some have died from cardiovascular complications after COVID. We saw Al Roker hospitalized for blood clots. He has a double whammy on his hands. He had COVID in September. He also has prostate cancer, both of which are known for possibly, he's fighting prostate cancer, both of which are known for increasing your risk of blood clots. But the cardiovascular element of COVID is the biggest reason why I was so paranoid about not getting this. And also the reason why I continue wearing, this is the China the made in China one, so it's thinner. I use them like surgical masks once for a trip to Walmart and then throw them out. But the beefier ones actually from Korea that are a lot stiffer and thicker and beefier. Supposedly we can use these for up to 40 hours. So I could wear these to work for an entire week. So that bag for like $20 or so has like months worth of masks in it if I UV blast these things and whatnot and reuse them until I hit like the, get close to the 40-hour limit. So but this goes underneath the cloth mask now. And those cloth masks were nothing to shake a stick at. The cloth masks had multiple layers of cloth as well. I went all the way to November 2022 before finally getting infected for the first time with just cloth masks. And I think there's two places I might have gotten infected. We know there was a guy coughing up a storm the Wednesday before my symptoms displayed, but I also went to my mechanic's place. And those are deep red guys. Nobody's masking, and customers are coming in not wearing masks. And it's in a hick town that's had more problems with COVID than my town has in these hick towns out here. More deep red, more people who've kicked against the bricks the entire pandemic. More nonsense, more QAnon, more conspiracy theory crap from these people. So could have caught it there from somebody's droplet crowd or whatnot. Maybe the cloth wasn't good enough. But, I don't think the cost of these, especially with how long you can wear them if you take care of them properly, I don't think the cost of these is all that prohibitive versus, putting your health at risk from multiple COVID infections. So again, I don't understand the maskophobia. Get blackout edition masks if you want to look more badass with them. But under no circumstances should anybody be afraid of masking when we still have a decent chunk of COVID going around. Not here in Connecticut, though. Things are dropping off. Let me actually go back to here. It looks like I was worried about that. I was wondering if I'd be like one of the last people that got COVID in the state of Connecticut. Here's the community transmission. This is, of course, very, very, very sensitive. But the old guidance from 2021 mentioned that under moderate or low transmission, you could take your mask off. So that's what I've been following. We haven't had that since the end of the Omicron wave, but here we are with the BQs going around. Southern New England has flipped to substantial from high. Tolland County, Connecticut, one of the woodsiest counties in the state with like horse farms and stuff. Yukon's there too, by the way. Moderate transmission. So if this pattern continues and it's not the data being screwed up by the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, look at Boston, Suffolk County, Massachusetts, moderate transmission. We could be looking at an environment where masks are more optional under the old guidance. Of course, I'm going to keep wearing masks, even if we drop to moderate, because there's so much other crap going around. There's flu going around. We go back to the flu map, and Connecticut's the worst state in southern New England, alongside New York. So we do have a bit of a problem. New York City's got a big problem, too. It's blood-colored instead of red-colored, so probably New York, just like COVID comes over from New York into Yale, New Haven hospital territory in the southwestern corner of the state, there's probably flu coming over as well. So there's other crap going around that's a good reason for me to keep wearing masks. But when all of this dies down, whenever it dies down, if the community transmission stays low enough, then people will then maybe I'll take a break from the masking and whatnot. I don't know, though. I really don't know, because it all goes back down to the weakest link, and I got all this stuff bought and paid for. So it's a real mess with all of this. But what we haven't seen, though, Kent County, Rhode Island, interestingly, is lit up. Center of Rhode Island. So Rhode Island, of course, is where there are all those problems with RSV and other stuff. But and then look at New York, the western counties, Westchester, Putnam County, New York. Look at all that. Threatening our western towns for people coming over through I-84. Let's see. Oh, it looks like there was another lag spike. What are we up to for drop frames? Yeah, 1,000 drop frames, 1.1%. It's as bad as it was during the summer. It looks like Martha's Vineyard is doing all right. So, yeah, I'm looking at things that people are saying in response to me talking to the friends and family about my own experience here. But not bad, actually. The issue I'm worried about when it comes to Connecticut numbers, we go over to COVID Act now. This is based on the CDC's green map. Again, Yale New Haven hospital territory and the stuff coming over from New York is where we have the higher numbers and stuff like that. But the issue, again, with the green map, CDC's green map, is that it's tied in with hospital capacity. So it's not quite as good of an indicator of what's going on with how much virus is going around. The thing I'm concerned about, if we go over to these nice dark mode maps, actually, that's hard to see. Let's flip back to light mode for a second here. So even though cases in the state are trending downward, although we've had this baseline similar to the Delta variants since we yoinked the mitigations, and this is BA.2.12.1, that special New York variant during the BA.2 wave that caused this spike back here. Even though we're trending negative, here's our hospitalizations in the state of Connecticut. The 2022 waves have consistently sent more people, scaled the population, to the hospital than the Delta variant did before Omicron showed up. But the old frog in the boiling water thing with us here, it looks like Omicron is kind of our definition of bad, even though UK Alpha was a wave, Delta was a wave, and now we have this, which has been consistently worse. So, I mean, you can get the real hospitalizations by factoring the population back in, but if I go back to the national standings here, there's our vaccine data, kind of irrelevant now. All that matters is how current your shots are. Cases per 100K, New Mexico, Puerto Rico, New York, Look at COVID admissions, though. Connecticut's number 5 on the list for hospital admissions per 100,000 residents. Like, what about those scaled numbers? What does that mean? It means when you factor out the population density so our cities don't look like wastelands of disease, these factors indicate who's doing worse with stuff. And to have Connecticut in the top 5 for hospitalizations is bad. How about the infection rate? Where's the most of it going around? Florida. Hey, what do you know? Ron DeSantis, keep Florida free. Woo, yeah. And every person who gets COVID in Florida, on average, is infecting nearly 1.5. Look at this crap. Death Santis is at it again. Worst infection rate in the entire country. Florida. In the wintertime. Oh, COVID is a summer virus. Oh, really, Governor DeSantis? Some things never change. Second place, Alabama. Then Arizona. Kerry Lake. Nevada. Nebraska, Missouri, California also has a high population. They got some stuff going around too. Utah. But Florida, worst infection rate in the entire country in terms of how fast it's spreading. And that's just, don't forget, this is reported cases. Thanks to these handy-dandy home tests and stuff, as well as a culture of hiding infections that exists among the minimizers and pro-virus people of various types out there. Now, thanks to all this garbage that exists, the real numbers could be higher. I mean, Connecticut had like low to medium COVID community levels when I caught this thing. So you're not out of the woods just because the green map gives you false hope, especially when you know what goes into the numbers. It's pretty crazy. All right, we can get the flu map off the screen now. But Florida, highest infection rate in the country. I wasn't even looking for that. That just jumped out at me. Why am I not surprised? What are we at for lifetime, and what are we at for drop frames? 1198 for a 1% drop frames thing as we pass the 1.02 mark. Well, I suppose as we have more runny noses and more lag spikes, as I'm seeing on the output right there, as we have more problems here, and I'll be talking to the ISP about this afterwards, it's important to realize I'm probably a great example of what the vaccines can do for you. So granted, I was completely out of shape. Sitting up like what I'm doing right now without even talking would get me to 100 beats per minute with a heart rate, and anything else was higher. But now I'm just sitting here worked up and I'm at 70. So I'm back to 72 now because I moved a little. 75 now that I'm moving a little more. But So getting the cardio of my job back into play after being sedentary for a week and a half, as I was taking time off before I got infected, has definitely worked to my advantage here. I'm mostly concerned about the cardiovascular side complications that this thing is pretty well known for. But I don't want to make anybody too jealous, because I have this nasty feeling that I've been doing that when I've traded stories of. When people found out I've had COVID, if they had it themselves, we've shared stories and stuff. And probably the most shocking story from a guy who I'm surprised I can even work with, because, 80 beats a minute. I'm getting worked up even more now. No oxygen problems. 97% of the oxygen, never had any oxygen problems. Never lost taste or smell. And when you factor it in, yeah, I had the worst fever of my life on the Sunday when I tested positive. But we knocked it down to a low-grade fever by Monday and stuff. So just one bad day. The rest of the time, it wasn't any worse than any cold or serious bug or whatever, bronchitis or anything that I've had any time in the past several years. And certainly not any worse than the low-grade fevers I got when I got all the Moderna shots. Which, yeah, I got all the Moderna shots. I got the bivalent booster in September. So I've already been primed for something similar to a BA.5 infection, and the BQ variants, genomic surveillance, I don't have it open right now, but if you look at the way things are right now, region 1 New England as well as all around the country, the BQ variants, which are the descendants of BA.5, are dominating everything. So if you haven't gotten your bivalent booster yet, go get it, because it's closer to the bivalent booster is actually closer to the ancestor of everything that's going around right now. I think even the XB variants, if the X variants come over from Asia, they're similar to BA.5 as well. So, but this whole situation here has gotten a lot of other people to tell their COVID stories. And when I've exchanged stories with them, they probably thought I was paranoid or had an anxiety problem, because my story was better than theirs. Now, I'm just watching for cardiovascular complications, which is the only thing I'm really concerned about. Oh, another lag spike. What do you know? What are we up to? Ooh, 1,251 for a 1% drop frames. Okay, I'll talk to the ISP after this. Let's stop making a big deal out of it. We knew it was probably still happening out there. The last couple of times it ran a lot better than it is right now. Old problems from the summer coming home to roost. But when I compare my situation with others and some of the, here we go. When I compare, that's bad. That might be low enough to lag out. Let's watch the preview. When I should have restarted everything. That almost went down to 0. When I've exchanged COVID stories with people, I found out again and again and again that my story was actually better than a lot of other people's stories. And the reason why it was better is because I've stayed current on the shots. I qualified for Paxlovid because of my weight, but by the time I was getting Paxlovid, I'd already knocked most of this down. Just there's some numbers out there that indicate that Paxlovid can help cut the risk of long COVID. So I sprung for it, had metal mouth for a couple of days, one of the known side effects of those things. So it goes through your system, makes its way back in your saliva, and you taste the antiviral again, and you get metal mouth from it. Not the worst thing in the world. I was still able to taste food. Just tasted pretty metallic the whole time. I was taking cough drops anyways because of the congestion that remained, so it kind of countered that a bit anyways, but not that big of a deal. I'd rather have things taste bad than anything else here. But when I've talked with people about their stories, they were always worse. And I always knew that the vaccinations were the reason why. Their stayed on vaccinations were the reason why, because they were suckered by disinformation, and maybe they blew off their booster or didn't get the bivalent booster or whatever. Or maybe they didn't want to vaccinate their kids. Now their kids are going to get hit harder by it as a result. Kids get this, and you don't want their growth to be stunted by damage from a COVID infection, especially when there's morons sending their kids to school unvaccinated, who will get hit harder by it. Now, granted, a kid might not get hit as hard as like an older person who gets it, but if we're talking about if we're in a world where young people smoking can stunt the growth of their lungs as they approach, adolescence and being a teenager and stuff. If we're talking about a world, if we're talking about young people stunting their growth or the growth of their lungs, then if we're talking about young people stunting the growth of their lungs by smoking, now we get COVID into the mix. Do we really want this to be an issue? Especially when if you follow this stuff, you know that whatever rare side effects the vaccines can have, the virus does even more. Like people worried about, rare side effects like myocarditis from the vaccines. Guess what? The virus causes it too. A lot more common. And then, of course, the cardiovascular side of it is involved in a quarter of COVID-related hospitalizations. It was involved in my hospitalization as well when I went to the hospital with a fever I almost couldn't bring down because the 103-degree fever was causing my heart to race. Like it was like 105 beats a minute when I was barely doing anything. I was scared. Really scared. So, of course, I did have everything get sped up by all of that. I did have everything get sped up by all of that, so higher metabolism, felt like I was a teenager sometimes. I get super hungry and I could eat without gaining weight. That was cool. But the faster heart rate, not so sure about that. But, yeah, the other stories that I've heard from people when it comes to their COVID experiences, the vaccines were a big part of it. We know my cousin died from Delta. Oh, it was a strict, tougher variant. He was unvaccinated. He had similar risk factors to what I had. I realized that people were keeping I didn't get one single thoughts and prayers Facebook update from any of my cousins. I'm very disappointed by that. But I do know that folks are keeping an eye on my situation because I have similar risk factors to my late cousin. Well, here's the difference in what the vaccines do. Here's the difference. Here's the difference in what the vaccines do. So, one bad day, and I'm making people jealous with my story about all of this. One bad day while in isolation. The rest of the time, not any worse than anything else that I've gotten before. One bad day. Versus people who blew off the booster and they get hit harder by it. They're out for longer. They have more to recover from. Manager got it during the Omicron wave, the so-called mild variant. It caught him without a booster, like so many people that got COVID when they didn't have their booster shot yet. He barely stayed out of the hospital. And after this lag spike passes, there's the ultimate example of this. A guy that I am very surprised I can even work with because he's the polar opposite of me on so many things, COVID especially. Fringe, hard-right anti-vaxxer. Brags on social media. Of course, he publicly shares these posts, so I eventually found out about them. He publicly brags on social media about how he's unvaccinated. And I got him to admit it when I was talking to him about this kind of stuff as well. He had it, knocked him out for 2 weeks versus me being out with 1 week, just being out of shape when I got back, having to ease back into it. But now, I'm just watching for cardiovascular complications that I might not know about. But by and large, I'm very much getting back into the swing of things, and heart rate is a lot better than it was a week ago. 79 when I'm all worked up about all this. No oxygen problems either. Never had oxygen problems. He did. He had oxygen problems. He was telling me about how he sat in a chair for 3 days just trying to keep breathing. Trying to stay out of the hospital. And he had long COVID as well. He had some elements of it like fatigue waves and other stuff that dogged him for 6 months after the last time he had it. And the last time I had it, I believe, was the Omicron wave. The mild one. Nature's booster shot, as some anti-vaxxers were calling it. Just too bad the newest variants are getting so immune evasive that infection immunity is becoming useless, sometimes as little as 2 variants later in today's world. But yeah, he was hit harder and out for longer. Suffered some damage for 6 months. That's long COVID. And then he was telling me, oh, I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't seek treatment because President Biden was making fun of people like me. And I didn't want to add to his narrative. I'm like, political narrative from a doddering 80-year-old president who's a gaffe machine? That's the reason why you didn't get yourself taken care of? I got the information back from the insurance for the times I've been in the hospital recently. I had a huge, heart check on how my heart's doing. I owe the copay for an ER visit. $150, that's it. Out of thousands of dollars in medical costs. Insurance did its job. It's great to see that nowadays. Usually I hear about people fighting with the insurance companies. There's the visit where I got diagnosed with COVID when I had my heart racing and the fever spiral that I thought would spiral out of control when the pills wore off. We'll see how they do with that one. And then maybe, if I can get my everything back in order and things don't cost too much in January, I could probably build a computer, if I really wanted to. Could probably build a computer. I was being tenacious because I didn't know how much I was going to get smacked for money-wise. But I'm getting more hours at work. I'm the reliable guy. And now I've had it, so if other people get it, they'll get it and have their turn out as well. And I'm wearing masks, and I'll probably keep wearing masks because of non-COVID stuff going around. Hey, another lag spike. But we got this other crap going out around, so I'll probably keep wearing the masks even if we drop to moderate transmission because I just don't want to get sick. That's not too much of an ask for people now, is it? No, they're not that expensive. You get high quality two-way ones that are meant to block stuff coming at you, in addition to you not breathing it on someone else if you get infected, which is what cloth masks and surgical masks are pretty good for. But surgical masks have the big gaps on the sides. It's not all that great. You got to get a good seal. But yeah, this guy, Fringe, dyed-in-the-wool anti-vaxxer, telling me about how hard he got smacked by this thing when he got it. And he had long COVID as a result. Versus one bad day. I don't know. But I think with how specialists are booked up, I might just want to see with how much specialists are booked up these days, it might take a while just to go see a cardiologist to make sure there wasn't any long-term damage from this bout with COVID. It might be one of those types of things. But a lot of what made COVID as terrible as it was when it was the novel coronavirus. Brand new. Our systems didn't know how to deal with it. We've had the vaccines, and the West has had the best vaccines in the world with mRNA, making other countries jealous because of our ability to produce them and their efficacy. And we showed it last time with the CDC tracker for hospitalizations. The unvaccinated, even now, as a small minority of the population, because most of the American population has gotten at least one dose, they're still the ones getting hit harder, hospitalized for longer, with more crap going on afterwards. And yet the campaigns and the disinformation and crap continues. These morons out there are suckering people into hurting themselves, potentially destroying their careers and their ability to work. Look, I've heard some of the long COVID stories. Many of them are from the earlier waves and the earlier variants that hit harder and deeper in the lungs. But what are we going to get if people are suckered into not taking care of themselves with these newer variants? Get vaccinated, get boosted, and unlike Dr. Walensky, I'm actually going to say, wear a mask. Because there's other stuff besides COVID going around now. We have more transmissible COVID variants, RSV, the flu, and who knows what else. These things are easy to get because the pandemic forced more manufacture of them. And there's so many morons going around that these things are priced nicely because The morons are going to get themselves sick and get hit harder by everything and blow more sick time at work and cause more problems. They're not buying these things. And then there's the politicization and crap that's still going on, even on the left, with the Biden administration having maskophobia. John Kerry just tested positive for COVID today. Now, there was the COVID Equity Summit at the White House. Dr. Walensky out for 3 weeks with a mild infection. No mask. Like one person in the room wearing a mask, because this is the scarlet letter or whatever. It's a reminder of the older days of the lockdown. No, it's a piece of freaking cloth. It's a tool. And it's not the vaccine, but we have other stuff besides COVID going around with a vengeance right now. Why not grab one of these with crap like that's going around, like what's going around right now? Please. It's pathetic. Give people long enough time. Give people enough time. And they will outlaw common sense for the sake of their snowflake emotions. Come on. To say nothing of the people out there that are immunocompromised and more vulnerable for whatever reason to this thing. And now, you're not wearing these anymore. The pandemic's over. There's all this crap going around. My kid's stuck home from school. I got to pay extra money for childcare. I won't have them mask. I won't have them get vaccinated, though, because... Pathetic. Get vaccinated, get boosted, get some freaking masks, and get through the winter while the morons get sick. You know, maybe not much has changed since 2021 or 2020. Seems like it always comes down to whoever's the weakest link or whoever's the lowest common denominator. Some things never change. As Ecclesiastes puts it, that which has been is now, and that which is to be has already been. Is there a thing of which it is said, hey, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. Take care of yourself, and by extension, each other. So what's next? Well, I'm going to do a full internet reset before I try streaming talking about technology tomorrow night. I'm going to talk to the ISP about what happened with the nearly 2,000 drop frames representing 1%. So now it's like they never fixed anything. And we'll see if we can get a trouble tech or the bucket trucks out here to see what's going on with this again. I'm not happy that it's back. And I don't want someone to be like, it's your modem, that's the problem. So, I'm not in a position to really build any computers or do anything. Probably work on some tech stuff that I already have sitting around, as opposed to buying more stuff. We got to see what happens with the medical stuff, things like that. Plus, I've had enough copays and stuff that it's adding up to something significant. So, got to make some money again to make up for this. Then we'll see what we can do from there. But if things work more smoothly, I would like to actually talk about what it would have been like in terms of costs for me to build a system right now. So I was curious about a 5700X around Black Friday. We're heading up towards Black Friday. So we'll probably jump on Newegg and we'll take a look, compare Newegg and Amazon and see what exactly there is for that. And then get back to the videos. But I do need to take it easy and ease back into things. One of the worst things I can do coming back from a COVID infection is overdo it. I've done a pretty good job not doing that this week, and I want to keep the progress going here. And we'll figure out the rest as things pop up. Take care of yourselves, get vaccinated, get boosted, vaccines.gov to locate, well, you can pretty much go get a COVID vaccine at pharmacies, Walmarts, supermarket pharmacies, all over the place. Get caught up on everything and get your bivalent booster. The bivalent booster represents a technological improvement over the ones made for the original version of the virus 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. So, stay current. Throw everything you have at this thing. Have stuff available to deal with fever or other stuff if you get it. And of course, masks all over the place. Plenty of them. You can get all kinds of them these days. Get some decent ones that are high quality. And if you're worried about the cost, ask yourself, what's more expensive? Having some masks that you get like one less night out at a restaurant to buy masks every so often, or the cost of being out of work, or possibly losing your job or your ability to have a job. I don't think there's any comparison here. So, great to be back. Unfortunately, the internet nonsense is back too. Time to give the ISP a hard time right before Thanksgiving. Whatever. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.